Imagine breaking free from emotional triggers and pain in minutes, even if they've haunted you for decades. Hi, my name is Di, and I'm here to share my story, a story where I created a technique that literally dissolved the emotional triggers and pain. A journey of how I survived a traumatic criminal case that changed UK law. You can unwind all of your emotional triggers and pain. This video and the videos that follow are going to help you understand how emotions are literally the fuel of your thoughts, and how sometimes other processes that you've tried just aren't effective or they don't last. So before I do that, I'd like you to then come back with me 20 years ago. My family and I moved to a idyllic English countryside village where my son was 7, who attended the local small primary school, and life was good. We were happy. I had my animals, my horses and my dogs. My son had developed new friendships. We had a peaceful, carefree, enjoyable life. Less than 3 years later, everything changed. My life was catapulted into a living nightmare where I was chief witness in a criminal case that I had to protect not just myself but others. It was a cold November evening when I made that call to the helpline. I knew I had to report this to the police. I'm so glad I did. But what followed was a descent into isolation, loneliness, fear, anxiety, panic attacks, a relentless cycle of negative thoughts and emotional triggers I'd never really experienced, and the emotional pain of how was I going to survive. I tried to get some help. The doctors gave me medication that didn't suit me at all. I asked for counselling, but I was told as part of a criminal investigation that I wasn't allowed professional help. I felt like I'd got no support. My husband, who worked away a lot, he thought I was overreacting. You're making a mountain out of a molehill. But what unfolded later was more than I'd ever imagined. The loneliness consumed me. People were all around me. I was putting a brave face on, and yet I was crumbling inside. The emotional toll was like a tsunami. Guilt, the what ifs, the anxiety, the fear, and the panic attacks. It was like I was living in a movie. I felt like I had to wear a mask that said, I'm fine. Oh, but deep inside there was emptiness, there was just overwhelm. My thoughts kept playing the same negative story. I knew I was stressed. I didn't really know what that was doing to me. I'd noticed the physical changes, the headaches, the sleepless nights, the hair loss. Didn't associate that one straight away. The digestion issues, the diet, you name it. I felt as if my young, fit self was just fading away. It's only later that I realised that emotions can do this to your physical body, and how later, when I untangled all of my emotional default patterns, did I realise how much healthier I would be. Christmas came, and I attended the parties and I plastered on the smiley face, but inside I was barely holding on. It was Boxing Day when a surprise phone call from the detective. There was more to this than even I had realised. Over the next year, court dates came and went. I got used to burying my emotions, holding my breath when those triggers arose. As if that wasn't enough, the devastation of grief struck. The following Christmas, my father died, and none of this saga had been resolved. 18 months later, the final hearing, or so I thought, was heard at Crown Court. Walking to that courthouse with that statue holding the scale. As I walked up those steps, I recognised a guy from the evening news, and the dread that the media had found out. The panic attack, I just literally ran up the steps and ran to the loo and threw up. gained my composure, walked out again, and then my friend whispered, "It's okay, they're here for another case." I could breathe again, but the shaking didn't stop. Buried my hands in my coat pocket, took a breath, and walked into that courtroom. I hope I'm not triggering anyone here. Please listen through to the end, because I did find a way out, and there is a way out for anyone that is choosing to deal with life's issues. But for now, let me continue my story. The courtroom was an old, historic room, smelling of centuries of justice and injustice. I sat on my hands, knowing that they were shaking. The judge looked up at the victims and families. I wish I could do more, but the guilty verdict allowed me to feel safe, or so I thought. You know, in that moment of realization that you don't have to be on high alert, you think you're okay. You think it's all behind you. And then you realize as the days and weeks and months go by that the triggers are still following you, and that each trigger is just like you were there in that moment, just like your mind wants to play back, working through the ifs and buts and changes that may or may not have done something different. The triggers were everywhere. They were on the news, they were in documentaries, they were a passing glance from a stranger in a street, they were an innocent word from someone. None of them made sense, and yet it was just catapulting me back to the emotional turmoil that I was trying to leave behind. After the conviction, one of the most profound experiences of my life occurred. I literally went from panic to peace. I walked into the room, it was lunchtime, and I put the TV on, and I froze to the spot because the news article there just triggered me. I got the heart palpitations, my heart was racing, um, my temperature had gone up. I knew I was in panic. My head was trying to say, "Stop it! It's all finished. It's all gone," but those triggers were still there. So as I turned the TV off and I sat down, trying to compose myself and get my heart rate back to normal again, I sat there and I went deep inside. Something just told me to follow the emotion, follow the panic. And as I followed that panic, the root cause was not to do with the trauma I'd experienced over the last 2 years, but it was real as well. I realized I had to change that emotion. I looked at different perspectives of the original trauma that I'd felt, connected to different people. It was very bizarre. And then as I unwound that, I could feel a shift. I created a technique then to resolve that emotional trigger, that panic. I didn't quite know how profound that was, but I felt better. That same evening, with the news report on the TV, I knew I'd found something special because I listened to that report all the way through. No triggers, no heart rate increase, no temperature change, not rooted to the spot, just observing and looking in almost disbelief of, oh, I knew I'd found a tool, more than a tool. I knew I'd found a way of changing my emotions. I can't explain how profound that moment was. It was like an instant change. It was like feeling like the me that I'd lost. I wasn't reacting. I wasn't being triggered. And yet I had done just a few hours before. That was the start of the rapid emotional detox, redetox, as I have come over the years to understand emotions and how they affect life. But my story wasn't over. 6 months after that Crown Court hearing, I had a phone call from the lovely detective that had supported me during the journey. I remember her words, full of compassion. "I'm so sorry, Di. They're appealing." I think I was in shock. I know I was in shock. I listened to her words and what was going to happen. And as I put that phone down, I fell to the floor. but it was different. Yes, it was shock, totally unexpected. I was starting to move on with my life and find happiness once more. It was very strange, not feeling the heart rate increase, not feeling the temperature, not even having the shakes. When I was invited to the UK Supreme Court as a guest of the Law Lords, I had a mixture of calm and nervousness. By the way, the Supreme Court for non-UK residents is like the being invited to the biggest court of your land. On that day, I sat looking at the barristers with their wigs and robes and gowns, the law lords in their suits, listening intently to the arguments of either side. There was a little moment or two. It was almost disbelief. Surely that loophole was not relevant nowadays. The appeal was heard and we went home, finding out a few weeks later that the loophole was closed. We'd been part of changing UK law, protecting others, protecting our own families. Justice had been done, but I knew that for myself and for all the others involved, life was never going to be the same again. The difference was now I had a way to resolve the past, a way to release those emotional triggers and to release the pain. And now it's time to teach and share my knowledge with you. Over the next few years, I studied emotions because I knew I'd found something that worked. And it worked not just for me, but for others. I chose to mentor those seeking help, especially where mind-based therapies were limiting or not suitable to them. I understood emotions were the fuel for the mind, and how in changing the emotional pattern, the mind and thoughts could just change. I was guiding people to the root cause because I knew if you found the root cause and changed that, everything else was easy and it lasted. I also found that a significant amount of people with physical pain and ailments too also found relief. Susan, who'd had neck pain, not able to sort of turn her neck very far, for 20 years, had that pain resolved in one session, but it was all emotional pain. And once that was changed and released, it was gone. Other clients had suffered back pain, some of which for 30 years. And one lady said Redetox saved her marriage twice. It works in so many different ways when you look to how you feel. For me, untangling emotions, we're not going to delete them. You can't. We have emotions as feedback. If we have negative emotions, it's something that we don't really want, or we don't want to do, or some people might think, oh, you push yourself through them. And yet, if you have the positive flowing emotions, life's enjoyable, life is happy. What I've learned, emotions being the fuel for our thoughts, is that if you change the emotion, then the thoughts have to change. It doesn't have to be hard. If you've ever felt trapped in emotional pain, waiting to feel better, you're burying it. I'm sorry, but you are. Unless you resolve it, it's just buried, waiting for another emotion. You see, I know it doesn't have to be that way. I know you can detox your emotions and feel proactive in your life again. So if you're ready to transform your life, join me every week, because I'm going to upload videos on emotions, on mind and perspective, which ultimately means you not only find yourself, but you can live the life that you want. You see, emotions can either hold you back or they can empower you into the future that you want. If you would subscribe to my channel and look out for future videos. So today has just been about my story, and that I've been there through the traumatic events of life. Even if you've not had traumatic events, everyone can learn not to carry the emotions, because when you do that, you carry your past, and your future, it's in front of you.